But now that you have set up your camera and taken a focus practice sequence, you need to stack them together using software. In this video, I'll cover the basics of focus stacking in Helicon Focus. Macro photographers often use focus stacking to overcome a fundamental challenge associated with macro photography. When you photograph subjects at very close distances, such as in macro photography, only a small part of the subject may be in focus at any given time, especially when you're using wide apertures to gather more light or to achieve a blurred background. This shallow depth of field can be insufficient to capture the entire subject in sharp focus, which is often desired for detailed close-up shots. Focus stacking is a technique used to extend the depth of field in photographs. It involves taking multiple photographs of the same subject, each with a slightly different focus point, and then combining those images in post-processing software. This process creates a single image where more of the subject is in focus than could be achieved in a single shot. The resulting image showcases the subject with greater clarity and detail from the front to the back, which is particularly important in macro photography where showcasing intricate details is often the goal. But how do you focus stack? What software is the best, and is it as simple as throwing all the images into focus stacking software and just clicking a button? Not exactly. We do need to do some work on these images. I'm going to take you through now how I stack an image using Helicon Focus. There are other focus stacking software available on the market, but Helicon Focus is the software of my choice when it comes to my focus stacking. Our focus stacking adventure all starts in Lightroom. So the first thing you're going to do when you get back from a photo shoot is you're going to put your SD card into your computer and import all of your image into Lightroom. You'll get something very similar to what we have here in front of us now. You've got a bunch of images that you need to organize. Now, in previous years, before you start a stack, you would photograph your hand. So you'll often see macro photographers photograph their own hand and then do a stack. This is so we can organize which parts on our images in the library are focus stacked images and which are not. However, if you're a user of Lightroom, you no longer need to photograph your hand. There's a handy tool in Lightroom that will organize it all for you. Let me show you how that works first. So what we want to do first of all is we want to select all of our images, and I'm going to press P to select it as a pick. When I'm doing my culling, I will select the filters, the flagged, and then anything I don't want, I'll unpick it and it just disappears from my field of view in Lightroom. Once we've done that, we can actually delete all the ones that we don't want, and that's a choice up to you if you want to. I've started doing that because I'm finding myself not needing to go back and looking at blank images or out of focus shots. When it comes to stacking, what you want to do now is once you've selected all of your stacks, we're going to right click on it. We're going to come down to stacking, and then we're going to click on auto stack by capture time. So we're going to set this capture time to 1 second. And essentially what it's going to do is any image that's taken within 1 second of each other, it will stack those together in a stack within Lightroom. This isn't focus stacking, this is just putting images together. So if we look at the stats here, based on what I put in here, which is 1 second, I always use 1 second, we have 4 stacks, 0 unstacked. So if I click stack now, all of my stacks will automatically be stacked together and I can just organize which ones I want to edit. It's a nice quick tip for you there. If you're out and you're photographing 5,000-6,000 images, this is a nice quick way of you being able to organize things. So the one we're going to edit today is this one here of damsel line. So there are some fundamental steps that we need to do before we focus stack. When it comes to denoise and colorizing the image, you're better off working on the raw file as much as possible. So anything that needs to be done on the raw file needs to be done first before we start stacking. That's just the way I do it. If you've got a different way, that's completely up to you. I'm just showing you the way I do it. And what I want to do is I want to apply my what I call colorize settings first. That's where I fix the colors, I fix the exposure and the details, stuff like that. Now, one thing I want to point out, and something I alluded to in one of the previous videos, is the inconsistency of the V350. Can you see there? If I just go to the right and you can see how, yeah, it's a perfect example just here. You see how the inconsistent in the exposure. That's something you just get with that flash, and if you're using that flash, don't worry about it because Helicon Focus can fix those issues. But what I will do here is I will select the first of my stack where there's some detail in focus and a lot of out of focus details. Is the very first thing we want to do is color or edit the image to the colors that we want. Now, I'm not going to show you that in Lightroom. I'm just going to use one of my presets. And I'm going to use Fighting Reds for that from my Macro Presets version 3. Now what's important is, particularly if you're using my presets, is the presets do some noise reduction, and we don't want noise reduction quite yet because we're going to use a third-party application for that. So what I want to do first of all is double-click on the luminance to turn that off, double click on the color noise reduction to reduce that, and I'm going to turn off sharpening as well because we don't want to sharpen the noise. This is just my preferred way of doing things. Now if you don't have a third-party application, you can go ahead and denoise right now, and when we do the next step, that denoise will apply to all of your images, but I'm going to be using third-party software for this. Once we've done that and we've got our single shot the way we want it, we want to copy those settings across all of your stacked images. To do that, we make sure we have the single shot selected. We're going to come over to the last shot, shift click to select them all, and then we will synchronize. And we want to make sure we got everything on here that we want. At the moment I'm copying everything, so I'll just have it all ticked. But if you didn't want certain aspects copied over, you can untick it. I'm copying everything over, so everything is ticked, and we will just click synchronize. This is going to take some time to do, so we'll come back once this is finished. Once that's done, all of our images have had their color applied, their adjustments applied. We want to come back to our library because now it's time to do our noise reduction. Again, you can use any type of noise reduction that you want to. If you are just using Lightroom, just use the noise reduction within Lightroom. For this particular video, I'm going to be using Topaz Denoise. I like Topaz Denoise. It seems to do a fantastic job at denoising images. There are some pitfalls with it. It does create a new TIFF file, and that is why we want to do our adjustments first before we denoise. If we do it the other way around, we're going to be putting our color adjustments onto a TIFF file rather than our raw file. So we do the color first in the raw file, then we shall denoise. Now to do that, we still have all of our images selected. All we got to do is right click, edit in, and edit in Topaz Denoise AI. What we want to do is we want to edit a copy with the Lightroom adjustments, and we want to make sure this format is the same format we would edit in our entire workflow, which is Adobe RGB 16-bit. Okay, we're going to be outputting TIFF files, and of course once you've stacked your image, you can delete these TIFF files if you wish to, so it's not going to clog up your hard drive if you manage your library correctly. So I'm going to click on edit, and now Lightroom, if you look up the corner here, is going to start preparing these files for editing. And again, this might take a while depending on how many images you got and how quick your computer is. We now have, as you can see down this corner here, 100 images that have been converted to a TIFF file and have been exported into Topaz Denoise. First thing I want to do is find an area where there's in focus areas and where there's out of focus areas. So that looks like it's going to be about here. There are 4 different options here: clear, low light, severe noise, and raw. I often stick to the clear. It seems to work quite well. And you can see here, low isn't going to do the job. Let's go to medium. Medium is working okay, but we do have some areas, such as just here, that still have the noise in it. So let's go high. So high looks like that is what we want to do. That's looking nice and clean. And the other thing about Topaz Denoise is you can also sharpen with it. So that is set to low. I don't want to over sharpen things, but Topaz Denoise is very good. It's a very easy program to use. Select how much noise you want to reduce, and move the slider up or down until all the noise is gone, and then select how much sharpness you want. Generally, these are the settings I use most of the time, is high and low. It just works quite well. Next, we want to select all of our images. So we have them all selected, and then all we got to do is click apply, and that is going to batch process all 100 images for us. So this is going to take quite some time to do because it's processing 100 images, and on my system, which is a MacBook M1 Max, it usually takes about 15 minutes. This is why I want to come to a topic I haven't really talked about, which is the MacBook. And when you're picking cameras, you know what you want out of a camera, you know what you want out of the lens. But when it comes to computers, a lot of people make the mistake of going for the fastest computer they can buy. Fast isn't what you want reliability. I don't care that this is going to take 15 minutes to process, so long as it doesn't crash out while it's doing it. Right, so once that's done, all of our images will be spat out into Lightroom here, and you can tell that these are the processed images because they have TIFF at the end. They've got edit, TIFF at the end. Those are the images that we have processed, and then we have our raw files just here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to label these. Let's do a color label of red. And the reason why I'm doing that is a controversial move that some people might disagree with me in the comments is, once I've finished processing the image, I will delete these files because I no longer need them. What we've done there is we've processed our images, as in the color and exposure and etc. And then we've reduced the noise. What we have done is we are giving Helicon Focus the best quality image we can get for it to stack the images. So now let's get on and actually focus stack these images. To do that, we shall right click and we're going to export to Helicon Focus as a TIFF file. So once we click on that, it's going to export all of these images into Helicon Focus. And to be fair, it is actually quite a quick process. Okay, see there, it's already done. Okay, so let's maximize this here. I want to go through some things first with you. So let me come up to Helicon Focus and come to my preferences. Now I have changed some of my preferences here. What I was finding is, even with some slight movement, my stacks were failing. So if we come out to adjustments, I have adjusted these to 25%. That's a lot of movement that Helicon Focus is able to process. Now I don't do that much movement. It's just I found that having it set to these settings seems to work pretty good for me. So we have 25% on both the vertically and horizontally adjustments. Rotate 25 degrees, scale 10. It just works. It just works. And then this is the magic setting here, adjust brightness. This will bypass the issue of your V350 not being consistent. Okay, and then we have crop out automatically. So once it's done, it's stacking it or crop it automatically for you. Okay, so we have 3 different methods of rendering out in Helicon Focus. And I'm not going into details about this because I want to keep things basic, but certain methods work better with certain images. For instance, what I have been finding lately is method C works great if I'm focus stacking on an iPhone. That is one of the best methods for that. It also works great for water drops. Generally what I do is I will render out all 3. So we're going to start with method A. My radius, okay, this defines the area to detect the focus. I'll set that at 3. We have smoothing. I have that set at 1. Then this defines the focused areas that should be combined. And this is just from experience of playing around. I seem to find that 3 and 1 works pretty well. I don't really adjust those for my images now. So all we got to do is once we got that set up, we just click on render and you'll see Helicon Focus go through all the images and create a focus stacked image for us. Okay, so there is our focus stacked image. Stacked it together. You see how we got these halos around certain areas. This is why I render out all 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on method B and we're going to render that out. Now the output files will come down to this bottom left hand corner down here. So we haven't got to touch them at the moment. All we've got to do is just concentrate on rendering out the images. Okay, and now we shall do a method C. Once we've rendered out all 3 files, we can then save those out to our hard drive. Okay, we have all 3 rendered out. If you wish, if you have the pro version of Helicon Focus, you can come over to the retouching tab. And what you can do here is when you find errors within your stack, you can copy from the left hand image over to the right hand image. But generally I don't really use this. I find it a little bit clunky. I prefer to use Photoshop. We have a text and scale panel. I've never used that. And then we have saving. So if you're working on a large project, we could save the project out. That way if it crashes, we can reload it. But generally that is all I do when it comes to Helicon Focus. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to our menu, file, save all. And we're going to choose a destination file, which is going to be my project folder, into images, and then we shall save. And of course, you've got your format here. We can save JPEG, TIFF, DNG. I generally work in TIFF. We're not going to compress or anything like that. We're just going to save it out like that. And it's going to come up saying 3 files have been saved. So we have those 3 files saved. So we have all 3 of them, and we have A, B, and C. Now we're going to keep that folder open, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close down Helicon Focus, then reopen it. And what we're going to do is we're going to stack using the A-B method. If you notice on this image here, we've got areas where there's like fuzziness around detail. Well, this can help get rid of that fuzziness. So what we're going to do is we're going to re-input the outputs of A and B, not C. We don't use C, just the A and B. And then we're going to stack that with the same settings using method B for an A-B output, which is the best of both worlds. So you can see around those edges, it's a lot cleaner. We still need to do some work, but it is a lot cleaner. So I'm now going to right click on that. I'm going to save that output. And in here, I'm going to put in AB, so it tells me it's an AB merged focus stack. And the rest of the magic happens in Photoshop. And I'm going to go over this very quickly. So what we want to do is come to File, go to Scripts, and load files into stack. We are then going to navigate over to our project folder, images, and then we're going to select all 4 of those, and we're going to load those into Photoshop. And the reason why I do this is all going to become apparent now when we go into Photoshop. Zoom out just a little bit, and I like to zoom out for this part. What we want to do is we want to look at each file individually and look at what's good, what's bad. Now if we select the AB version of this file, if I zoom in, you'll see the detail is fantastic. We still have some issues that need cleaning up, of course, like I said before, but overall the details look good. If I turn on C, you can see some of those issues. See here, if I turn that on and off, you can see some of those issues have been fixed. C works pretty well. And what we're going to be doing is we will select the different areas from each layer that we want to keep. So we have A, B, and C. You see the B there, the background on the B is just, that's no good. So we can throw away the B, and the A is going to be very similar. You can see the background here, it's all blotchy. And here we have this area here, that's just no good. Which is why I like to work with the A, B, and C methods. So this is where we start selecting what we want to keep. So I'm going to put a layer mask on, I'm going to invert it into black, and I'm going to use a white brush to paint in the areas we want to keep. And the main area that we want to keep at the moment is the background. So I'm going to go around my subject and paint in the background, because generally speaking, the background from the C method is better. And of course, I'm doing this very, very quickly, so I expect you to spend more time doing this. Okay, so we've done that. What we want to do now is create a new layer. I'm going to call this Fixes. And this is where the time is spent on stacks. We want to come in here and fix a whole bunch of things. And there's 2 tools we want to use for this. The first is for removing stuff. You want to use the Remove tool, a very powerful tool. And I have a video all about the Remove tool coming up shortly. So subscribe so you don't miss that video. And then to add stuff into the image, we want to use the Clone tool. So I'm going to briefly talk about those 2 very quickly. So if I come and find something we don't like, such as just here where it hasn't rendered out quite properly there, if we come to the Remove tool, which is just here, Remove tool, what we can do is just simply paint around there, and then Photoshop will remove that for us. The Remove tool is a very powerful feature. Another thing you can use it for is to fix up your hair. So we can remove hairs with it, just like we're doing here, or we've got this hair here, we can remove that. But another thing it's good for is to finish off hair. So instead of removing this hair here, if we click halfway, scroll down, it's going to add that hair back in. Can you see there? The Remove tool is very powerful. Again, I have a video all about that coming up very shortly. For areas like here where we have blotchiness around detailed areas, that's where we want to use the Clone tool. So selecting the Clone tool, we're going to click Option or Alt to select an area to clone from, and then we will just clone in that texture. This works very, very well. You just have to be mindful of repeated textures. So if you do get some repeated textures, go in there and remove those repeated textures. Let me show you a repeated texture now. Let's say we're doing something over here. We're going to select here our source, and then we'll clone in. Can you see we've got a repeated texture? Now to fix that, all you do is just clone again, and we just clone out the repeated texture, just so it's not absolutely obvious you've used the Clone tool. If you look underneath this bubble here, we can select a source, and we can clone in like that. Now you can see that's a little bit lighter. So to fix that, we'll select from somewhere else and just go over it so it's not obvious. And then when you zoom out, you'll see that it looks pretty much perfect. And you have to do that over the entire image. And once you've done that, you'll get an image that looks like this. And of course, you can do some more colorizing on it if you want to. You can put some more sharpening on there if you wish to. These are all options that are down to you, and it's all stuff I'm going to cover on the channel this year. So again, subscribe if you don't want to miss those videos. But that is the basic workflow of focus stacking in Helicon Focus. Helicon Focus is only a very small percentage of the workflow. The rest of it is Lightroom and retouching. Something you've got to get used to if you do want to do high magnification focus stacks in macro photography. So I hope you found that video useful. Let me know in the comments below if you did find it useful. But for now, this is where I shall leave this video. My name's Stewart Wood. I want to thank you for getting to the end of this one, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for sticking to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, then please subscribe and click the like button. It really does help out the channel. I want to thank my Patreon supporters for their continued support in supporting me and this channel. If you're interested in joining Patreon, then check in the description below this video for a link to Patreon. If you want to continue watching my macro journey, then click one of the videos in front of you now.